Hello, everybody. Hope you're well. Back on today to talk a little bit about our beloved Yeshua, Jesus, and getting into the understanding of why he was able to do some of the things that he was able to do. Because where we are headed, it's going to be important for us to be able to adopt a different way of looking at creation, and one that is akin to how Jesus, Yeshua, would have been dealing with creation when he was on the earth. So I'll get into that in a moment, but I wanted to start with a prayer that is relevant to this topic. O Father, I place my eyes in your keeping. I offer you my ears, and I lay my heart before you. See through me, listen through me, and feel through me. Let this world be met first by your gaze, the gaze that does not fear, does not divide, and does not exile. Before my mind seeks to interpret, let your knowing receive. For your sight does not search for what is broken. You behold what is whole. You remember what has never left the garden. Teach me to see as you see. When I look upon pain, let me not agree with separation. When I look upon illness, let me not confirm the story of loss. When I look upon another, let me meet them as already held, already known, and already restored in you. For miracles are not made by effort, but revealed by remembrance. As Yeshua walked, so let me walk, not trying to change what I see, but seeing from the place where all things are already reconciled. Let your truth meet every form, before my mind gives it a name. Then my thoughts will follow your knowing, instead of reacting and seeking you afterward. Make me a quiet window through which your eternal wholeness looks upon the world, so that nothing is met by fear, nothing is met by judgment, and nothing is met by exile, but everything by calm recognition. You are here, it is already whole, and it is already held. And because you are here, I am here, so it is. So I wanted to share that prayer today because it talks to a way of being which enabled Yeshua to do and perform some of the miracles and things that we have heard about or read about. And I want to get into the mechanics of why. And it's quite simple, really, and it's not something that you won't have heard me say before. But looking at Yeshua's life and how it applies will help us understand how we can change our relationship with creation so that it starts to come more into balance and alignment for us individually and eventually for the collective as a whole. So Yeshua, Jesus, essentially his life was completely submitted to God. His heart was completely obedient to God in such a way that every cell, every bone, every organ, every part of his being was fully surrendered and returned, redeemed by God. And the way that he did that was by acknowledging time and time again that he is of the divine, he belongs to the divine, that God created him and everything, and through that understood that he was a son to the Father and obedient to the Father in all that he did. So miracles that he performed were essentially a expression of faith, and the reason that people were healed by him was also an expression of their faith, as Yeshua would have said, by your faith these things are added unto you or done to you. So he was informing people that it was their faith that actually did the healing. He simply stood as a conduit for God's grace because he renounced his claim on creation. He renounced it as his, or his mission. He understood that everything he was doing was the Father's will, and that the scroll which he walked had been written long before he came into form. So he wasn't there by his own volition, but he had a job to do as a physical manifestation of the divine in flesh. So he said, all the things I am doing you can do and more, because he understood the law and understood that the process through which healing and revelation is awarded is by surrendering the self to God. Many people will talk about their journey of faith, but it's still laced with language of fear. Fear of temptation, fear of the devil, fear of manipulation or control from some outside force or influence. That isn't the posture that Yeshua held. He just walked forward with God in complete faith that God already sees everything in its wholeness. And that's the key marker that I want to place with this topic, is that the healing, the redemption, the transfiguration is a symptom of knowing that in God's sight everything is already whole. That even though a person might be dealing with an ailment or an illness or a trauma or whatever it is, God does not look at them as filtered by that. From God's perspective, they are completely whole. And each of us contains within us a seed of awareness that knows itself as one with God, knows itself as inseparable to the ineffable, and also understands that any experience of pain or suffering, injury, trauma, wounding is all a temporary experience that isn't being hooked into, it's just fleeting by. We are conditioned by time and space in this reality, and so for us those experiences can seem overpowering, they can seem permanent, unavoidable, unescapable, unfixable. But when we allow ourselves to see through the seat of the monad, the higher self, the oversoul, the I am, whatever term suits your perspective, we can look upon creation as already whole. And this is the fundamental necessity in terms of perspective that is going to help us migrate and shift from a way of being that was to a way of being that will be. And this is happening no matter what we do. God is finding ways to announce his presence ever more obviously in the makeup of our world, whether that's through events that take place on the global stage or through our own biology. But the truth that many are starting to recognize more and more is what unity, oneness actually is, and that is complete wholeness all the time, despite experiences of separation, despite experiences of lack, despite experiences of not enoughness, or whatever it is that people are moving through and navigating in this world. Behind all those experiences is the eternal presence of God that says, I'm with you and I'm not going anywhere. And the moment that you surrender to that truth is when healing begins. Miracles, you could say that a miracle is something that happens outside of time and space. And it's a level of such faith that the entire chemistry of the body can immediately shift. And so it might sound a bit unachievable for us in our modern world because we are living in a density that requires time. But time doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things because we know that we've got eternity anyway. So when we understand that, it enables us to be able to still look through our experiences with the lens of timelessness, with the lens of unity and oneness, and be able to remember that despite our experience, we are still completely whole in the eyes of God. And what that knowing does is it changes the nervous system. It changes the biochemistry of the body. It relaxes us. It puts us in an open, receptive state where the battle and the war that some of us are in through healing and through trauma starts to dissolve itself. And over time, that is what brings the healing. So maybe back in the day when Yeshua was around, there were people that had a lot more trust in the relationship they had with God and the idea that there was a Messiah coming. So that level of faith was enough to help them heal very quickly. But that level of faith is something that we can work on. It's something that we can build, and it's something that we can use to promote healing. The Western system would probably use the word placebo instead of faith, but it's essentially the same thing, because it's understanding that when you have an awareness of wholeness and you live that, then the body responds to that and starts the job of release and relax, because that's ultimately what's going to allow the body to heal, is when it's not guarded. You see, when many people get sick, they'll adopt language such as, I'm going to fight this, I'm going to go to war with this invader. And that posture is the very same one that for many keeps the issue going on for longer and longer, because the body is never at war with us. The body is always trying to reveal things to us, and the gravity of certain ailments could be reflected in our ignorance to what the message is really trying to communicate many of the time. So, we have an ailment pop up, and immediately the posture is, this is attacking me, how do I get rid of it? Instead of what is the information that is being revealed through this experience, and how can I love this part of me for revealing that to me? That way I'm not in a state of adversary or enemy or opposition to this thing, and therefore immediately the body does not treat it like a hostile thing that needs to be attacked. It actually treats it like a pulse of awareness that needs to be understood. And so that's the posture for healing, for miracles. But it takes time, because we are having to essentially convince every cell of our body that we believe and know that God is with us. People will read occult knowledge and they'll listen to the story of Jesus and say, we could walk on water, we can levitate, all these things, but then the next moment they could step off a boat and completely sink into the water, which is funny because that very sentiment is shared in the Bible, with the story of Peter stepping off the boat. While he keeps his eye on Yeshua, he is completely held, and he's fine. He can walk on the water because he's looking directly at the one he trusts. And then as soon as he turns away and starts to be concerned about the wave that's coming, he sinks. And that's no different in the way that we operate here, because we take our eyes off the divine, we forget our eternal refuge and safety in his presence, and then we start to sink. So a person who knows that you can walk on water can't necessarily jump off a boat and do that straight away, because their entire system needs to agree to that truth. And our bodies, our cells, our nervous systems are full of information that separates us from that truth, that keeps us looping in narratives of fear and duality, and that's what disables our ability to experience tangibly some of these things that Yeshua was doing. So when he said, all the things I'm doing you can do and more, he wasn't lying, but the point is, you can't just do that by knowing or just by believing what he said. It's about how you spend time with your body, convincing your body cell by cell that you trust God. And that takes, it's like an onion. It's very layered, And as much as people in the spiritual community want these peak pop experiences and may have those, that is just one experience, but the process of handing your body back to God takes time. And don't think for a second that Yeshua didn't put the time and effort in either. It wasn't just like that. It takes time to hand yourself over to God, because that process is going to bring up memories and fragments of things that have happened to you which would have had you doubt that relationship. And you're going to have to meet those experiences and move through them with faith, so that your body remembers line by line, layer by layer, cell by cell, that you are whole in God's image. And that is what brings the healing. So this is such an important change of perspective for where we are going, because it's about reconciling what unity actually is. and understanding that we are always whole in his image. And when the body believes that, that's where the healing comes from.